We all do it. We obsess over the race for the White House, endlessly debating the merits of national politicians who live hundreds of miles away. But while the president commands the news cycle, it's the officials in your own backyard who actually control your day-to-day life. They are the ones deciding the funding for your local schools, the response times of public safety, where new housing gets built, and even which empty lot gets turned into a shopping center. Despite having all this immediate influence, the rulebook for how these local leaders get their jobs and how they keep them is a chaotic patchwork that changes every time you cross a county line. Choosing to ignore these local races means surrendering the most immediate levers of power in your own life. Think of running for governor like a job application. In most states, the baseline legal requirements are relatively standard. You need to be an American citizen, a state resident for at least 5 years, and generally 30 years old. But the extremes are wild. In Kansas, there are virtually no formal qualifications to become governor. Meanwhile, Mississippi demands a candidate be a U.S. citizen for a full 20 years and a resident for 5 years before even applying. Then there are the unwritten political credentials. Most successful candidates spend years building resumes in state government, usually serving as lieutenant governor or state attorney general before aiming for the top spot. Still, there are notable exceptions. Ronald Reagan secured the governorship of California without spending a single day in any prior elected office. George W. Bush pulled off a similar feat in Texas, bypassing traditional state government experience to become governor. Step down to the municipal level, and the application process gets even more erratic. Depending on the town, you might find a minimum age of 18 for a mayoral position that pays absolutely nothing, or a raise for a mid-40s executive earning a comfortable $56,000 a year. Ultimately, your zip code dictates the baseline competence and background required to run your community. Once the application is in, candidates face a 2-step interview process, winning a major political party's nomination in a primary, and then facing off against the rest of the field in the general election. In most states, winning that final interview doesn't actually require the support of most voters. It simply requires a plurality, meaning the candidate only needs the largest single slice of the vote, even if it's far below 50%. The 2006 Texas gubernatorial election serves as a prime example. Rick Perry walked away with the state's highest office, even though a clear majority of Texans actually voted against him. This chart shows exactly how that happened. Because the opposition was fractured, Perry won with just 39% of the total vote. The remaining 61% was split between a Democrat at 30% and 2 independent challengers grabbing 18 and 12%. In states like Arizona, Georgia, and Louisiana, that 39% wouldn't be enough. Those states require a strict majority of over 50%. If no one hits that mark, the top 2 candidates are forced into a runoff election to decide the winner. What counts as a Democratic mandate in one state might trigger an entirely new election in the state right next door. Once an executive is in office, their tenure is usually capped. Most governors serve 4-year terms, but Vermont and New Hampshire keep their leaders on a much tighter leash, requiring them to run for re-election every 2 years. Local charters, however, often throw term limits out the window. Mayor Hilmar Moore served the city of Richmond, Texas, for 63 uninterrupted years until his death in 2012. If an executive dies or resigns, the safety net is typically the lieutenant governor, though 5 states and Puerto Rico use different officials to fill the vacancy. While state leaders are often cycled out by strict constitutional limits, a local leader's ability to build a decades-long dynasty is a possibility allowed entirely by hyperlocal rules. But what if a leader needs to be removed before their term ends? Every state except Oregon allows for impeachment, a top-down process triggered by corruption, bribery, or serious misconduct. In 2009, the Illinois Senate voted unanimously to remove Governor Rod Blagojevich for abusing the power of his office. He was later convicted on federal corruption charges and sentenced to 14 years in prison. If the legislature won't act, 19 states provide a bottom-up mechanism called the recall. This allows citizens to go to the polls and directly yank an official from office mid-term. Recalling a governor is exceptionally rare, happening only twice in U.S. history. The most recent case was in 2003, when California voters successfully removed Governor Gray Davis. Recalls are far more common at the municipal level. In 2011, voters in Miami, Florida, removed Mayor Carlos Alvarez after he raised taxes while giving his aides salary increases. These specific, often messy mechanisms of accountability are determined by the individual constitutions of each state. Across the United States, there are about 3,000 counties and 20,000 municipalities, each operating under its own unique rulebook. This diversity of rules exists because power is kept at the community level, ensuring that local leaders remain directly responsive to their specific neighbors rather than a distant national standard. Because these are the leaders shaping your immediate environment, skipping the bottom of your ballot means abandoning